Hi, this is Mark from Altcoin Buzz, and it's time to look at Bitcoin again as we get started on a new week. Where can Bitcoin go? What are the new targets? Where are the trend lines sitting today? Let's take a look together, and let's get started. Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at this chart. And if you were looking at this chart, would you buy this coin? And I would say absolutely I would buy this coin. This is the inverse chart of Bitcoin on the USD one-day chart. The reason that we're looking at the inverse chart is to just give ourselves a little bit more of a perspective on this particular asset, and on this one it's Bitcoin. So if you were to look at this chart and say absolutely this coin is going to continue to go up, we like the way that this chart pattern is looking, well then you reverse that and flip it now knowing that this is Bitcoin to say it looks like it's going to continue to go down. So let's get into the chart a little bit deeper. We're looking at the USD 1 week chart on Bitcoin. We do have the VPVR on. See the point of control is sitting at $6,400. Our next largest node is sitting right where that yellow line is at about 55.38. Call it 55.50 if you will. And that's where it looks like we're going to close out the week, is on that yellow line. Our next highest node, if we break through there with some other action against it, is at the $4,600 area right in here at this red line. Now, where we're sitting at right now is a logical point for some resistance. If we look back here in October of last year, there was a lot of action in this area. So if we just split this price action up in half basically and extend that line across, we could even bring it up to this area where we had some support and give ourselves a range. We're going to have resistance in that 57.25 to 58.75. That'll be our resistance area before we even get up to $6,000 most likely. Our one day isn't showing any momentum to the upside yet on the MACD. We just don't have any momentum going on at this point in time. Now, the one thing that we could have happen is if we go down to the lower time frames. So now we're on a 4-hour chart, and one of the things I wanted to show you, one of the potential positives that you might have happening here soon, and let's just see what happens if we take a look at what might be shaping up as a Bart pattern. Now, a Bart pattern is something that you might have heard about in crypto. About the only place that I think you might hear about it. And that's where you have a pretty sharp incline or decline, a flattening out, and then another sharp incline or decline. So much like we had happen back in here, and the thought being that this looks like Bart Simpson's head. That could be, in the opposite direction, the inverse as well, right? So if we just take a look at this and say, what did those respond back to when they did respond, and we went from the top and the bottom for a fib retracement, well, the response was back up to about the 618 right there. And if we do the same thing on this pattern over here, our response was back up to about the 618, 786 right there. Let's just do that move back here. Let's just take a measurement back here. And if we had the same thing happen, then we'd be looking at somewhere around right to the resistance level on the 618 and right to our next resistance level, that yellow line of the $6,000 area at the 786. So we could potentially have another spring back up, quick spring back up to test this resistance here at the $5,880 to $6,000 range. If not, this resistance holds, our next spot down is probably about the same price action. If we use this area back here as where we had a lot of action happening, we could find ourselves in a new trading range that looks something like this. And then if we break out of that trading range to the downside, then we're right back in here at about $5,000. Okay, so since we did talk about that Bart pattern, the other thing that I do want to mention here is that we do have what seems to be a bear flag forming. And this is a little different than the previous Bart patterns. I do want to give it some acknowledgement at least. You can see that we have some pretty solid resistance coming in right here on this pattern, with higher lows being made. And because we can't make higher highs, typically you'll find this breaking to the downside. The difference between this becoming a Bart pattern and the other Bart patterns is if we go back and look at the Bart patterns over here that we just looked at, you can see it'd be a lot harder to draw that pattern here. It's not quite as clear back in these prior Bart patterns. If we take this one, we don't have quite as clear of a top, or resistance level at the top there. We certainly don't have it here on this prior Bart pattern. So that is concerning because this is very clear that we've got resistance here in this area, in this general area. So that is the one thing that's concerning to me, that we may not get that Bart action up to try and test some of that prior resistance. Of course, this is crypto, so anything can happen, but just on traditional, kind of looking at the traditional charting patterns, this would be a potential bear flag and a continuation pattern down. Worth at least noting. So the question has come up, what about that spring that you were talking about before? Wasn't this one of the things that you were watching for, where we dip back down into prior swing lows, like back in here, and then come back up to make a new run? And yes, this is one of the things that I would have been looking for. What I want to see now, if that is to happen, is we need to have a quick reaction back up, quick being a relative term, and having us come back up to break tests even, but eventually break through the $6,000 and find the $6,000 as support. This would then look very much like a spring to me for our next run up, because then you'd be looking to start making your runs on your markups back up to new higher highs. So this could be a spring. Unfortunately, right now with the momentum the way it's looking, I'm not that encouraged that it is a spring. The volume and the momentum shows that we're not even ready to test the resistance levels that we talked about right now. So unless we get some influx of volume to the positive side this week as we come into the week, the likelihood is we either trade in this range for the rest of the week, or we break down from here and start testing those $5,000 levels. I'm going to give you one more word of caution here at the end, but before I do, please hit that like, subscribe, and alert button so you know when these videos pop up, and also hopefully this gets shared with some more people if you found it useful. Also visit us on altcoinbuzz.io, where you can find all kinds of great articles coming out throughout the week from some very talented writers. And here is the word of caution. Be very careful about getting too excited if you see us take this Bart pattern up and come up to the $6,000 level. And the reason for that is if you jump in because you see us starting to hit that $6,000 area and you think we're back on the rise, this $6,000 area we tested as support many, many times. And because of that, it's going to be very strong resistance for us. We'd have to clearly break through, get above this $6,400 and use the $6,400 and $6,000 area as support before I'd feel encouraged that we are on track to start making another run. Because again, this has been such strong support for us in the past, the likelihood of breaking through it on a single pass is very low. So that'll wrap it up for today. And until next time, may all your trades be good ones.